Hello, all. Welcome to today's lecture. We have been speaking about various factors of an ecosystem in the past few classes, and today we'll be talking about a very fundamental concept in ecology. Now, ecosystem is quite a dynamic entity. It is never static. Its structure and function keeps changing with time in an orderly manner. But once in a while, due to certain sudden disturbances, the vegetation of an area can get completely destroyed to give rise to a bare area. Now, these reasons or these factors could be climatic. It could be a climatic cause like a drought or a heavy rainfall or hailstorms or lightning, or it could be some topographic changes in the soil like soil erosion or excessive soil deposition like due to glaciers or heavy storm, or it could be a biotic cause like overgrazing or deforestation, or there could be excessive cultivation or some parasitic attack on all the plants in an area. So one or the other reason, there could be, due to such sudden disturbances, there could be complete removal of vegetation from an area leading to a bare area, like the pictures shown over here. The first picture is of a forest fire. So, forest fire again is an example of a sudden disturbance which is going to lead to removal of vegetation from an area. The second picture is of a landslide. This picture was taken from the Talakaveri landslides in India in August 2020. So, here again you can see so much of land has got deposited that it has totally destroyed the vegetation of that existing vegetation of that particular area. This picture, the third picture, is of the floods in Assam in India in 2022, where there was a lot of area that was inundated by the river water and by the excessive cloud burst, due to which much of the vegetation became rotten. The existing trees started rotting and they were completely removed. And the fourth one, this is the cyclone. This one is a picture taken from Gujarat, that is in Western India in 2021. This is of a cyclone Takute, where you can see that a tree has been completely uprooted. So, such sudden disturbances, some climatic factors, some biotic causes, some topographic causes can lead to removal of vegetation from an area. But that area can get back its vegetation. The plant and animal species do come back into that area by altering their environmental conditions, and that is called as ecological succession. Now, this ecological succession is a very core concept of ecology that was given by, or the pioneer who studied maximum about it in the initial years was a scientist named Henry Chandler Coles. He studied the Indiana dunes, and from there he got this idea, or he came up with this concept of ecological succession. In simple words, ecological succession is where natural communities replace one another over time. So it keeps going on, the replacement keeps going on till a mature community is finally reaching that destination, or once a disturbance has occurred, till the mature community has established itself in that ecosystem, this process of replacement or this process of ecological succession will keep go on. Or ecological succession can be yet again disturbed when again some other disturbance happens, like another rainfall or another volcano or some other reason where suddenly you have the ecological succession coming to a halt. Otherwise, if there is no disturbance, this replacement of communities one after the other over time will keep happening till a mature community has reached. So, to define ecological succession, it is an orderly process of changes which are happening in the community structure and the function with time. This is very important because it takes years together. So over time, these changes will occur, and the changes happen by modification in the physical environment. So the organism which is coming, suppose a tree is going to be surviving in that area today, the tree will modify the environment as per its liking. Suppose there is a shrub, the shrub will modify the environment as per its liking. So each animal or plant that is replacing the previous community will alter the environmental conditions in their favor. So this occurs by modification of the physical environment, and ultimately, till when does this go on? Ultimately, it culminates in a stable ecosystem which is known as climax. Till then, this replacement will keep going on. So that is what has been shown over here in a flowchart. A was the community that was initially there, that was replaced by B was replaced by C was replaced by D. And suppose the D is surviving there for many years, it means D is our climax community. D is the community which is the most stable in that ecosystem. So the community which is finally ending the process of ecological succession, or you can say the final species, the species that is going to stay as the stable species. Usually the stable species are tall trees or a forest community. So the stable species is what we call as climax community. The species which starts this process of ecological succession in an area, say there was a forest fire and I have new plants coming up, that new plant, that first community to establish the succession, is called as a pioneer community. And in between the intermediate stages, the intermediate communities are called as seers or serial community. So the complete process of succession from pioneer till climax takes hundreds of years. For example, I could have the bacteria or the fungi or maybe a moss or a lichen which is acting as the pioneer community. It starts the process of ecological succession in a particular area. Or it could be even grasses like, say, sea couch, or it could be maram grass, or it could be lime grass. So I can have different types of grasses which are growing in a particular area. They are forming the pioneer community. That is followed by the cereal stage 1, that is here it is shown by B. This is usually herbs or weeds. That is replaced by shrubs, which is the cereal stage 2. And finally, shrubs are replaced by the climax stage, which is the most tolerant species, or you can say the slowest changing plant community. Usually, these are the trees. So, as the native species go extinct or they become rare, new species start entering the ecosystem. Now, this process of ecological succession can be of two types based on where the succession is happening. Based on the area, I can have either primary or secondary succession. Primary succession is when the plants or the animals are colonizing a previously desolate area, or you can say that an area which was not having any growth over there, no plant, zero plants were growing over there, or a fresh patch of land which has been created or exposed. On such an area, when the plants and animals start the process of succession, start colonizing, start living, that is called as primary succession. For example, a sand dune or a bare rock or a new volcanic island, or means after the lava cools, when the volcanic island is now fresh piece of land, or when a glacier has retreated. So these are all examples where previously there was nothing growing, now there is going to be a succession that is starting. So such a type of succession is called as primary succession. As you can see over here, I have just shown you in diagrammatic form. So we have rocks on which lichens and mosses start growing. They are replaced by weeds. First we have annual weeds, and then we have perennial weeds which are replaced by shrubs. Then we have small trees, and finally we have tall forests. So this is where you have an example of a primary succession, where the colonization or succession is happening on a previously desolate area. The second one is secondary succession, which is happening or which occurs on a land or on a piece of area where there were well developed communities. So it starts when there is a sudden change, a sudden disturbance. It could be a forest fire like shown over here, or it could be some particular climatic activity. It could be a biotic intervention. Suddenly you went and deforested that area. So some particular sudden disturbance or change causes the existing well developed communities to disappear. And in such an area, when new communities start appearing, when new plants start developing, that is what we call as secondary succession. Now secondary succession is impacted by disturbance, because there was sudden disturbance, they were removed, but that soil is still rich in nutrients. It still, that area still has certain survivable or favorable conditions to survive. So that is a reason secondary succession takes lesser number of years in comparison to primary succession. If primary succession is happening in say 150 years, secondary succession may happen in less than 100 years. The reason being, the soil is rich over there in nutrients because it had plants growing which had contributed nutrients to the soil, and only due to a sudden disturbance, that particular community, either an intermediate or a climax community, was destroyed completely, and a new community starts developing. So we have pioneer, intermediate, and climax community coming over there. So primary and secondary succession are types based on the area where the succession is occurring. To show you an example, this is the Indiana Dunes near Chesterton, Indiana. This is where Henry Chandler Coles had studied his field work. He had done the field work way back in 1906. So you can see over here, there is bare sand which is present here in the foreground with small juniper bushes. And then you can see behind there are more stable dunes which even have pine trees. So it shows the succession in action. Initially, it was only sand in the entire area, but slowly the sand is being replaced by other communities which are more stable. The second type of succession, the second classification of succession is based on the moisture or based on the moisture content or moisture relation. The first type under this is hydrosphere or hydrarch. This is a type of succession which starts in an aquatic environment. So it could be in a bog, in a pond, a lake, a swamp. What it starts with is phytoplanktons, and slowly these phytoplanktons give way to a forest. So when the water is too shallow for floating plants, I ultimately have a forest over there. So when the succession is starting in an area with ample water or an aquatic environment, that is what we call as a hydrosphere. Hydro stands for water. Mesosphere or mesarch is when the succession is happening in conditions where adequate moisture is present. So it usually starts with lichens or mosses or algae, and then it finally proceeds to trees. This is happening because there is sufficient organic matter present, sufficient water is present. So the succession seen in such areas is called as a mesosphere. Xerosphere or xerarch is seen, or the succession which is seen in conditions which are very minimal, very less water, poor nutrient conditions. Such an area, when we see succession, that is called as a xerosphere or a xerarch. Usually the pioneer species in such areas, because the conditions are very difficult to live, there's hardly any water and there's not much of nutrients. Usually the species which starts the succession in such an area are crustose lichens. They are one type of lichens. Lichens are organisms which are a type of symbiotic association between fungi and algae. So one type of lichens which grow very well in such barren areas are crustose lichens, and they are usually the starting species, the pioneer species. Under xerosphere, we again have three types. Those are lithosphere, where the succession starts on rocks, Samosphere, where the succession starts on sand, and Halosphere, where the succession is seen in extremely saline soil. So these are the different types of ecological succession based on moisture relations. We have seen what are the types of succession based on the area where it occurs, that is primary and secondary, and based on the moisture relations, we have hydrosphere, mesosphere, and xerosphere. Hope to see you all again in the next class on ecosystem. Thank you.